Hi, and welcome back. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. So today I really wanted to talk about the Blon BL-05, but this is all I have of it. I have a couple screen snapshots because, like my rent check, it is still in the mail and I don't have it, so hopefully next time. But today we're here to talk about this little USB-C dongle called the Sonata HD PRO. And I had the old version. So Hiby and TempoTec basically rebrand. I'm not sure who. I think TempoTec is the parent company or the originator of the product, and I think Hiby just rebrands it as their own. But anyway, this is a TempoTec HD PRO USB dongle, integrated volume control, and a 3.5 jack on that end. And on the back is a little DSD logo because it does internal DSD decoding, which I didn't actually get to work, but they say it does work. So that is that. So I bought this guy on Amazon, $38 from the chart. Let's see, most important thing, the DAC is actually CS43113, and it's got DSD decoding and DOP, which is DSD over PCM, and the rest of it isn't all that interesting, but you can kind of ignore the marketing brief. So so this is the Hiby's S8 version. It's actually got nicer buttons and a nicer metal case, but they charge you about twice as much, so about $90 on AliExpress. So I bring that up because we're going to talk about where I found this guy, and so I was kind of browsing around seeing what was new, and some people had mentioned they were using the TempoTec HD PRO as their new go-to for travel or on our phone DAC. So I was kind of intrigued because a year ago, I bought this Hiby's. This is the original Sonata, and it was just a pretty simple, again, a USB dongle, no volume control, and it didn't work all that well with Android. I always had problems getting it to work. It didn't sound all that great, so it was never really worth the trouble to get working. So the good news is that the Sonata HD PRO is much easier to use. Everything seems to work. The volume works. It doesn't flake out like the original one did. You were playing music and then all of a sudden it would hang up, and then you'd have to like unplug it and plug it back in. It was kind of kludgy to get to work, but not so much an issue with the new one. It seems to work fine for me. So where I kind of got intrigued was, if we look at Audio Science Review, he is sort of the critical of DAC measurements. So the Hiby's S8, again, same thing as the TempoTec HD PRO, is rated about number 25 or 3 or 4. I don't know what number that is, but it's pretty insane how highly ranked it is on his list, considering it's kind of in the company of $1,000 DACs and hundreds of dollar DACs. So kind of interesting to always find those products that seem to compete well with much more expensive products. So that caught my eye first. And I'll give you links to this review so you could quickly find it and not take my word for it. So you can kind of see where, how many DACs he has actually ranked. It starts all the way over here, and the Hiby Sonata is about right there. So yeah, kind of blown away on his benchmarks anyway. I'm not sure I think there was one that had better price performance, but I didn't go research that one, and I found this one on Amazon, so I kind of stuck with it. So let's kind of talk about, once you get past all the charts and, 100% buy rating, all that junk, should you really buy it? Who is this thing really aimed at? And I will say that if you actually go back and look at the Audio Science Review and look at the comments, people will say, oh, it sounds almost as good as my desktop amp DAC combo. But I wasn't, but I'm not going to replace that combo with this because the amp part of it isn't nearly as strong as my desktop amp. And that's sort of how to interpret a lot of these charts. Was it, yeah, its DAC performance is off the chart, but as an amp, it works really well with these easy to drive IEMs. When you get into headphones, which are a little more demanding and harder to drive, you're just not going to get, the amp isn't going to be big enough to really do that. And at the end of his review, he kind of talks about, I think, 3 different pairs of headphones he tries and which ones worked and which ones didn't work. So this is kind of really targeted at people who are looking to upgrade the audio in their phone, you know, take their audio. I have a Samsung phone as well, and I'm not a big fan of that DAC. So this is kind of a cheap way to get almost desktop quality amp, or DAC, I mean, you know, on your phone without too much, you know, baggage with you. Anyway, this thing is pretty tiny. It's kind of annoying that it's still a dongle, but as far as, you know, upping your sound quality on your phone, this thing seems to do that really well, and I was super impressed, especially considering I had the older one and I really didn't like it at all. You plug this one in and listen to it, and you're kind of immediately like, yeah, now I get it. People really like it. It sounds really good. Do I think is it going to sound better than any desktop amps? You know, maybe if you have something super easy to drive, but that's not really what they were aiming for. I think it's really this mobile market, you know, upping the sound quality, you know, as you're traveling. I think that's pretty much the target market. But it's good to know that, you know, something at $38 is, you know, which is pretty cheap, is approaching some pretty expensive gear. So good to know. It's kind of a safe bet anyway. So why I sort of kept it around was, so this is the Urban Fun YBF IEM, and so my issue with this guy was it's the soundstage was kind of wacky. It was kind of a little too close in for me. I think some people interpret that as a bit shouty. It's got this, you know, it sounds like the Blon until you get to that part of it. And then you're like, it's Blon did it a lot better than the soundstage wise than the YBF did. So one of the characteristics of this Cirrus Logic chip is its kind of really strong suit is mids and treble and imaging. And so it actually pairs really well with this because it fixes those issues. And most of those weren't issues for me except the soundstage, and this definitely kind of cleaned that up. Basically pushed it back a little bit, enough so it doesn't sound like someone is, you know, singing in my ear or too close to my ear. So I thought people were kind of dead on with that characteristic of this Cirrus Logic chip. So the downside of this chip was the bass, and this Urban Fun has so much bass, it's kind of hard to say whether this is a little weak in the bass section. I think generally people will say that, so I'm not going to disagree with it, but did I notice it with the YBF? Not really. I mean, maybe there's kind of a lack of texture, but know that the strong suit is definitely going to be the mids and the treble and the imaging, and I think it kind of lived up to that reputation for me as well. So just kind of throwing this out there as kind of a budget buy that I found that I'm going to use probably going forward, probably along with my LG phones, because I think that the DAC is kind of nice to have a different sounding DAC anyway, because I don't have too many of them. So it was a good experience for me, and not that much of an investment to get something that sounds great. So until my Blon BL-05 finally arrives, hang in there, and I will hopefully talk to you soon. Thank you.